So I don't know whether you know this before you put on this thing.
Okay.
I had an invitation to go to see Sadat in 1977, and I went to his home in Ismailia. At that time, I took Howard, Senator Howard, Gene Howard, was with us. And it was a personal invitation from Sadat to come and visit with him in Ismailia, where he had his home.
Was
We
that
spent
in
1 hour together.
Was that in Egypt?
In Egypt, yeah. At the time when, before you went to Israel, before you went to Jerusalem.
Yeah. I have a lot of respect for Mr. Sadat.
So,
Okay.
very few Americans had that opportunity.
Yes. Today is December 9th, 1988. My name is Joe Todd, and this is an interview with Mr. Harry Guterman. And are we in Tulsa or Broken Arrow?
We are now here in Tulsa.
In Tulsa. Okay. So where were you born?
I was born in Poland, June 13th, 1925.
1925. And where were you born? In what part?
In a little town next to Lodz, L-O-D-Z.
And who is your father?
My father is Chaim Guterman.
How do you spell it?
C-H-A-I-M, Chaim.
And your mother?
Helen.
What was her name before she was married?
Rawska. R-A-W-S-K-A.
And what type of work did your father do?
He was in the textile business, as was my grandfather, and 2 generations before that.
And how were they, what did they do within the textile business?
They were weaving fabrics and finishing fabrics. It was mostly for clothing.
Did they own their own mill?
They owned a little mill, and but mostly was contracted out to farmers and so on, which is very typical for European merchants.
Did you work in the textiles as a child?
Not at that time. I was only 13 and a half years old when the war broke out, so I had no opportunity to work.
And where did you start school?
When?
Where and when?
Where? Well, in the town where I was born. Actually, the name of the town is Konstantinov, which is, as I said, just about 6 miles outside of Lodz, which is like Broken Arrow would be to Tulsa here.
And how large was Konstantinov?
Konstantinov, about 8,000 people.
And how many years did you attend school before the war broke out?
7 years.
7 years.
Yes.
Were you and your family aware of the rise of Germany and the rise of Hitler?
Yes.
What was your family's attitude towards?
Well, being that we were in Poland, and at the time, you know, the rise was really in Germany, we didn't, nobody knew that what's going to unfold. And in Poland, although at that time the crisis, there were some crises, financial crisis, and the economy was not very good, and knowing that Germany is building up to some kind of a big action, that they will maybe one day move into Poland. So we have tried to think about how to get out of Poland and to go to Palestine at the time. And my father did succeed to smuggle himself out of Poland and went to Palestine just to see how it looks over there and what future can be built for our families. They had he had 4 brothers and 2 sisters. He still had his parents. So we thought perhaps there might be something that is for the whole family, some kind of future. And he was, being the oldest son, they sent him. And so he, because of that, was saved from all the agony that we had to go through later on.
What part of Poland is the area called the Polish Corridor?
Well, the Polish Corridor is the northern part of Poland. It's the one that Hitler would want to connect there was a part of Germany. There was a corridor where it goes up to Gdańsk and Gdynia, and it was only like a panhandle we have here that he wanted. That was his first thing that he was wanting, is to connect the two together. There was Old Prussia, it was a Prussian part, and there was then Poland, and then it's Germany.
What do you recall of September 1939 when Germany and Russia invaded Poland?
What I remember is the fact that being a child at the time, first thing we did is run away from our little town to the larger town in Lodz, and thinking that at that time nobody will identify you as being Jewish, and you will have a better chance of survival. The Polish population at that time was also not very receptive to save Jews. They at that time probably created also a certain amount of hate because of the propaganda from Germany, and it did spill over to them. Also the fact that we ran to a larger city at a time because the family was more together over there. Most of our families went to the larger city. So at the time, of course, we were just wondering what was going to happen. Nobody knew, nobody even thought that such a Holocaust will unfold. The women would send their husbands away. Wives would say, "You run, go east." And they thought that that would save them from being sent away to some coal mines or slave labor. But nobody thought that they would take children and wives and women and put them in concentration camps, and of course later on had to be killed. They killed them and
Did you have any warning that the Germans would invade in September?
Well, the propaganda of Poland, the Polish propaganda at that time, there was Rich Migły was the president of Poland, and he was an army man. You see, Poland was at that time also some kind of a government that was not very democratic, and the army ruled quite a bit there. And so their propaganda was such that Germany will be wiped out in a few days if they will invade Poland. Well, when we then later on saw 10 days later, or a week later, how they overran all of the western part of Poland, we all of a sudden realized how disorganized and how weak the Polish army was comparatively to the German might, so to speak. They organized for war for many years.
When did you see your first German?
Beg your pardon?
When did you see your first German soldiers?
I saw the first German soldier about 7 days after the war started.
Was this in Lodz?
In Lodz, yeah. And we saw them coming by with this huge army going east. And, we saw a mechanized, comparatively, a mechanized army to the Polish horse and horse-drawn wagons and heavy artillery equipment.
What was your reaction to the Germans?
Right that day?
At that time?
Well, it was of course scary that all of a sudden your country is being run over. Secondly, we thought, my God, they are strong. This is they are big. They're not beatable. At that time, of course, our hope at that time was that England and France, Holland, Belgium, and all the other countries, they all react to it. And we thought, well, 6 weeks later the war will be over because Germany will be wiped out. We didn't know that how weak these allies were at that time. You know, we were thinking about England, that strong naval power, and France with all this Maginot Line, and there's no way that they can lose. It was only just a matter of a few weeks to wipe out Germany.
What was the German soldiers' reaction to the Polish people?
Right at the beginning?
Yes.
Well, I would say that you know, they also kind of try to make them feel like that they are liberated from their government. You know, it was a lot of propaganda was going on. In other words, they came in there like they would liberate Poland. You know, there were a lot of Germans living in Poland, and they were called the Ostdeutschen. And for them, of course, they came as their liberators coming in because they were, in a way, you know, not much liked in Poland when the war started out, because the Poles thought that they were all spies and so forth, you know, just like we had it here in America with the Japanese people.
Germany invaded September 1st, and then when did Russia invade?
I think Russia invaded much later. Yeah. I don't know exactly the time because this was, we were living, Lodz is about in the middle of Poland, and when Russia walked in, it was mainly the eastern part of Poland.
How long did you stay in Lodz?
I stayed in Lodz for quite a few years because what happened, Lodz became one of the main centers of Jewish people, because they brought them in from all the little towns and made a ghetto. The Lodz Ghetto, which, as a matter of fact, I have a book here of a chronicle of the Lodz Ghetto, which is very, very interesting, that was written on a daily basis by someone with the knowledge of the German government. And the ghetto was a gathering point where they would put all the Jews together, put a fence around it, was guarded by Germans, and there was the Aryan side and there was the Jewish side. Now the Aryan side, which was the Poles, non-Jews, and the Jews would be in this ghetto, and they would be, you know, rationed food, and we had to work, and we had an awful lot of people die from hunger. As a matter of fact, part of my family died from hunger in the Lodz Ghetto.
What did you do for food? The food that you did get, had you obtained?
To obtain the food, it was rationed in the stores. You would receive a certain amount of bread and a certain amount of, you would have a ration card, and that's all you could get. That's all you can receive. So it took you know, a certain amount of, let's say you would get a card good for 1 month. Well, you would have to the butcher, to the grocery store, and etc. And that you would go with that card and pay money, and you would receive a certain amount of rationing. Let's say if you had a family of 3, a family of 2, the card would be written out for each one family. Now this was done by an internal administration. That's what the Germans would set up. We had in the ghetto our own police, our own administration, even we would have trolley cars going inside the ghetto. All these things would be so well organized that it's amazing. It was like a country within a larger country, like a state, with their own money even in the ghetto. I still have some kind of money that I was, not that I was able to take through other camps later on, but money that I then seeked out and received from someone who had some souvenirs.
Was there a barrier between the Jews and the non-Jews in the ghetto?
Yes, yes. The ghetto was strictly for the Jews. In other words, it was a ghetto that was, if you can stop this for a minute, I can probably get that, but I have that book with me, and I might be able to explain that better as far as the ghetto is concerned. It has, the ghetto was built with a fence around it. In the area where there was a Jewish area in Lodz, just like in any large metropolis, you have a Chinese area, you have, like here in the States, you have the Polish area, the Italians live in a certain area in New York and so forth. But that was also in Lodz. It was a large city. About 750 people lived in that city, of which there were maybe about 350,000 Jewish people. So they would organize the ghetto right there where the Jewish section of town was. And they built fences around it with barbed wires. And they would be guarded with the German army, and SS would guard the ghetto. And in the middle of the town there was an enclave where the Germans would have their administration, and next to the Jewish administration of the ghetto. And we had a president of the ghetto. His name was Chaim Guterman, which was very elderly man, and he was the president of the ghetto, and he had an awful lot of power, but they also demanded so much from them, and he had his council, and he had his people working for him, secretaries, etc. So it was a regular administration.
What about water supply in the ghetto?
Water supply would be there ample. Okay. And when I say ample, drinking water, people would still walk around with these pails of water and sell water. If someone still had some money and didn't want to drink the water from the water faucet, they would still buy water. Some areas, Poland was very much was not what you would call a very advanced country. There were still houses where they had the outhouse was outside. You would have an outhouse, and you wouldn't have any proper canalization or water systems to get to you. So people would buy the water and also have some kind of a way to dispose of the dirt.
I interviewed Marion O'Paula, and he said when he was a small boy, he had known people that had been serfs in Poland.
Yes.
And when did the feudal system for the serfs end?
That I don't know. I don't remember that much the history, although I am once in a while picking up a book and seeing but it wasn't very long. It was not something that you would say ancient history. Poland was in fact a very, very poor country, and and the serfs, some of the very wealthy landowners would have people working for them, and they would have a house out there, and they would live all their lives. It wasn't exactly official slavery, but you know, you pretty much owned a person because he would have no way to go any other place. He was uneducated. He couldn't know how to read or write, and he was working the land. So.
In the ghetto, what type of house did you live in the ghetto?
Okay. When they put us all tighter and tighter together, because more and more people came into the ghetto, and of course a lot of people died out every day. Every day we would carry out people to be buried outside the ghetto. We lived in a house which was actually on the border of the Aryan side. Okay, it was for the Polish side, and we had the well, we were just in the backyard. We had that fence dividing the ghetto from the Polish side, and we would have always the guard walking up and down and watching that nobody is jumping out of the ghetto or smuggling himself out of the ghetto. So, but that house where I lived in would be normally for one family, and we had 4 families living in there. There was no toilets, that house, so everything was done in the house, inside, in a pail, and somehow we disposed of it every day, and it was of course very. We were in one room, and I had my sister, my mother, and a grandmother, and myself, in one room that was not much larger than this is here.
About 10 by 10?
Well, maybe 20 by 10.
20 by 10.
Yeah. But there we had to sleep, there we had to eat, we had to live in there, and also go to the bathroom. But we would just have maybe we had just a sheet hanging across, and kind of have maybe a little bit of privacy, but the smell and etc. was bad, and people did die from typhus and dysentery and all kinds of sicknesses that would could develop from that kind of living.
What excuse did the Germans use to put the Jews in the ghetto?
Well, they thought, if the Jews are a menace to the world. That's what he wrote in my Kampf, I guess. He had a plan how to exterminate the Jews, but he did not even plan to exterminate them to that extent. What he had probably in mind is just to rid Jews out of Germany, not knowing, not realizing that the Jewish people in Germany had very good positions and have helped Germany quite a bit in their economies, etc. The best example was a man like Albert Einstein left Germany for the United States, and it was crazy to deport a person like this. But right at the beginning, from Germany, people could travel out of Germany. He did not at the beginning. They just wanted to get rid of the Jews, period. It was different when he came into Eastern Europe. It was a slaughter. It was absolutely, people were, thousands and thousands of people were taken out of the ghetto just to go to be shot. So that ghetto lasted for about 4 years.
When did you enter the ghetto in Lodz?
I entered the ghetto in end of March of 1940. And here again, I must say, you were lucky. They assigned you a place where to live, and in that house there were people that you never knew before. They just said, well, family of 3, yeah, I got the house, here is where you're going to live. And when you got there, you already had 3 or 4 people living in there. So it was only a matter of someone getting it organized and putting us in the right rooms. And here again, this tremendous hope. What got us so confused in a way is the fact that we never thought that there is such a thing what really happened later on. We didn't even, I mean, it just, nobody would even think that they would get to, kill women, children, or anything like that. I mean, sure, they'll take you out maybe to forced labor. And you work because they had this huge war effort. And we thought, well, they don't have enough people, they'll probably take all these people and have them work in working camps, what they call Arbeitslager. And they did put in a lot of them from Poland, Polacks, Polish people, and other people in the in other countries, with the exception of the Jewish people, that they would right away have a different plan for them. Although, as I say at the beginning, in the ghetto we all worked. It's only that the rationings, food rationing was so small that, and the hygienic living, this whole thing, that I would say there was, hundreds of people would die every week. And they had to be taken out to cemeteries to bury.
Were you allowed to perform the burial ceremony?
The burial ceremony?
Yeah, I believe you're supposed to wash the body and...
I think that they could have at the time, but there were so many of them that it was pretty much, I don't think that every ritual or religious thing was performed strictly because there was just not...
was it a mass burial?
No. No. At the
burial.
time it was just individual burials outside of the ghetto.
The Crystal Night,
Yeah.
was that just in
Night.
Germany?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
That was on November the 9th.
Were you aware of that in Poland?
Yes, after this we knew that, in Germany they burned synagogues and broke windows of Jewish stores, businesses and so on, and took a lot off to concentration camps.
And you left the ghetto at what time?
Well, I didn't leave, of course, voluntarily. They took us out. Slowly they were taking the young ones, the ones that could still walk straight, and they took us to Auschwitz.
How did they take you?
By train.
Would you describe the trip?
Yes, I was in some groups before ready to go, but somehow I was able to sneak out, being that I was a pretty fast kid. I could move fast around, and so I got myself out of a couple of situations where they would gather up a whole bunch of people and say, today you go, and just put them into one area, like it was the city jail, and they would put everybody together, and 2-3 days later a transport would go out, and they would send us directly to Auschwitz. That was Birkenau, and that's where the real elimination came, where, let's say, we came in with a transport of maybe about 3,000. Only 400 went into the camp, and over maybe 3,000 people went to the gas chambers. And then, of course, the crematoriums. But it was, when we arrived there in Auschwitz, it was right, left. When the guy said you go to the left, which was his right, it was his left, our right, he said the left. That meant that he went to the camp. But we didn't know that. Even arriving there, we just didn't know what all this means. We thought, they are just sorting people out for various works and various camps, but we didn't know that they're gonna gas thousands of people a day.
Why were they gassing all these thousands of people? What was the reason?
They were no good for their industry anymore. They, older people, children.
Even children they were gassing.
Oh yeah, children, anybody. If the mother would hold the child and she didn't want to let the child go, they'll take the child and with her and put it in the area there where it would be Himmelstrasse. So Himmelstrasse means heavenly street, and that would go to the crematoriums. And I was also in one of the when they gathered us up at the time, and they said, well, they have to delouse us. We did get the water, we did get the showers, so we had to take showers, and you couldn't take anything with you. And when you came out on the other side, there was different clothing waiting for you and all this. But we were the lucky ones that from the faucets, no gas came out, it came out water, and we got ready to shower. And that was the way that it happened. And where they had those people planned to be gassed, why they would have them in a different column. And these people didn't know where they're going. When they got into the gas chambers, they thought they are going to take a shower. And the cyclone came out.
Did they put you in train cars to take you to Auschwitz?
Yes.
Would you describe those cars?
Well, the car was like a cattle trains, what you call here cattle trains, and we were packed in. And it's a matter of fact, what they told us, make sure that you take all your valuables with you and all your clothing and everything. And we said, well, people were very optimistic, I would say, in a way, that we are, nothing is going to happen to us. Why would we want to take clothing with us, and make sure you take soap and you take everything with you, and because you're going for a long trip, and it's going to be things that you will need.
How far from Lodz is Auschwitz?
Oh, it's probably by car. It will take a good 3 to 4 hours drive.
And how long?
It's close to Krakow. Yeah, it's the western part of Poland.
And how long did the train
trip take? One day.
And you were just packed in there,
just packed in as many as they could.
Were there many deaths on the train trip?
We had some. To be frank with you, I don't know how many there were dead, because the only thing you did, you could not even move. When you had people in there, and you must understand, being in that train for a day, they would get rid of their, and it was a terrible trip, and then when we would arrive to Auschwitz, and we saw Auschwitz, we still didn't know what it was, Birkenau, because there was a big sign, Arbeit macht frei, work makes free, so, keeps you free or whatever. And so, we thought, well, we are coming to an Arbeitslager, to a, they promised us you're going to go to Germany and you're going to work there and you're going to be in a camp and all this, but you will have plenty of food and it will be better organized, it will be cleaner. But all these were strictly things that they tried to fool the people so that they don't realize where they're going. Otherwise there would be terrible panic and people would really not go. Would rather fight at the time and not go in any of the trains. So when we did come into Auschwitz and they opened up the doors, and everything started pouring out. There were already these capos and all the things, and they told us what we have here, where we came from. You came here to be, that we're gonna, you're gonna be either killed or you're gonna go into the camp, and not realizing that they say, listen, you came here to a extermination camp, and Auschwitz was one of the largest extermination camps. They really did the elimination.
When you realized what it was, what was your reaction?
Well, as I say, I did not really know. Before I knew, I didn't have my mother with me, I didn't have my sister with me, I didn't have some of my friends who were in the same wagon. But I didn't know what happened to them. We did not know until we really got into the camp. And I met up with an uncle of mine by coincidence. And he told me, listen, they're burning here people. I couldn't figure out, what do you mean they're burning people? I say, what's happening to all my family there? They said he doesn't know whether they got through, whether they were in a camp or they went straight to the gas chamber. So there was nothing you could do. You were in the camp, surrounded with guards, and the night they put us into what they called Zigeuner Lager. That was the gypsy camp. And in the gypsy camp, there were, I don't know how many hundreds or thousands of gypsies. They slaughtered them out. They slaughtered them all in one day. Cut their throats, did everything. Because when we came into that camp, into those barracks, there was blood all over the place. Still, they tried to clean it all up. They said, we are going into the Zigeuner Lager. They had to make room. This thing was going so fast, they couldn't burn them fast enough as we arrived. And it was like a factory. I mean, production had to go on. And their production was to kill people. So I got into the Zigeuner Lager, and by coincidence, going outside on the campground, I met a relative of mine, and he said, hey, listen, Uncle Max is here, and he is a cook, which was a excellent job to be a cook in the camp. So I found him, and he told me the whole story, because he was there already a few months in Auschwitz. And he told me, listen, this is the story. This is how it goes, and I want you to get out of here as fast as you can, because they also, when sometimes a transport would not come into Auschwitz fast enough that they ran out of people to kill, they would just get into the camp, the Germans, and just block off a whole bunch of people and say, okay, move. And it was just hurling them over to the chambers, and because it had to be, production had to be done.
How many were being killed each day?
Where in
Auschwitz?
In Auschwitz, I would say the figures they say is about 2.5 million, but I would say it's probably between 2 and 2.5 million people, just in Auschwitz alone.
And this was every day they were killing people.
Every day they were killing people, thousands. I mean, they would burn them, first gas them, because they figured out that even killing them, this was not, was a bullet, it's too expensive. This was the thing. Everything was thought economically. I mean, how can you kill a person for maybe a half a cent instead of spending 15 cents for a bullet? So, and then the consequences of seeing, people always killing, and the soldiers would maybe get whether they would react and how they would react was still, I am sure, a question in their mind. But when you just pack in 300-400 in one room, and you say, okay, the shower, put on the shower, lock up the things, and bingo. And on the other side, they would just pull these bodies out, and the people standing to go in the shower would never see that. See, that on the other side, they're carrying the people off in wagons, just bodies. And but this was a routine that was. It wasn't just a one-time situation. This was going on day and night.
What kind of gas were they using?
That was the, what did I say here before?
Cyanide?
I just mentioned it a minute ago. It's I forgot.
Okay.
I forgot the name of it.
What were the shower buildings constructed of? Were they cement, wood?
Cement and steel and cement. Yeah.
And
you see, when you walked into it, you never would realize that it's anything else but some kind of a huge hole of a shower. I mean, that's where I was. See, I was never inside the gas chamber because I wouldn't be able to sit here with you.
Yeah.
So.
So they had two separate. They had one that was the actual showers and one that was a gas chamber, and they were separate. They were different.
Yeah, yeah. In other words, where the chambers where they would gas the people would go directly into the area where the gas chambers were in the crematoriums, whereas we would go into the camp, and there they would have the shower facilities, etc. In other words, once you went to camp, you at least got another chance.
Did you have to work in the camp?
Yes.
What type of work did you have to do?
Well, all kinds of work. You had to. They farmed out the people every day to other kinds of to factories, to buildings and construction work, cement work, and all kinds of carrying stones, carrying all kinds of work. I mean, it was manual work, and but that was not so much, I mean, a punishment if you would get enough food, and if you wouldn't have someone with a whip over you to always, whip you a little bit.
Tell me about the food at Auschwitz.
The food in Auschwitz would be a soup, and at the beginning, the first 2 weeks, the food was a big soup. What I say, a big soup, a thick soup. It was filling, it was good, and it was a decent piece of bread. Maybe one person would, 3 people would divide up one of these army breads, what they had. Of course, as time went on, it was 4 people the bread, 5 people the bread. By the time I left the camp before liberation, there were 18 people, one bread. So you had a little thin slice of bread and water. The soup got thinner and thinner. So, and that's why most of the people became Muslim, and what we called ourselves.
When did you arrive in Auschwitz?
I arrived in Auschwitz in August 1944.
And you had the Germans pretty well kept it quiet that Auschwitz was an extermination camp.
We did not know it. Maybe the American intelligence knew, or maybe the intelligence of the other countries, or the partisans. They knew it.
What was your average day at Auschwitz? What would you do?
Well, we would get up very early in the morning. They would get us up maybe 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, and let us stay on the Appellplatz, what was the I don't know what you call it here. You would be out outside of the barracks. They would gather up all the people there. And they would count us. This was the big thing, that they would count us for 2 hours. Rain, snows, no matter what it was, they would just keep on counting us. And then they would take us out to work in columns. And inside the camp, we would have to do all kinds of work, pick up little things, know this, keep the camp clean. But at that point, from that point on, they would always take people out. In other words, to other camps. And every day they would post and advertise that we are now gathering in this and this barrack, or outside this and this barrack, for a transport going to Germany. We would like to have all young people from 18 to 22. And then they would take people from 22 to 32 or whatever. But they would then they had, let's say, an order for some workers from other camps. Well, this is how they transferred me about 2 months later to Dachau camps. Because my uncle used to push me over. He says, don't stay here. You've got to get out of here, because here they're burning people. And you never know. You might be outside and they need 500 people to burn today that didn't arrive. They'll grab you. And so he was only interested in telling me, get out of here, get out of here. So wherever there was a group called for to get out of there, I would stay with that group, and somehow I didn't come with them. I didn't get, I was maybe, they only needed 300 people or 400 people to transport. But maybe I was, maybe 600 showed up, so they eliminated some of the guys.
And what type of sleeping quarters did you have at Auschwitz?
What kind of
sleeping quarters? What?
That was just, there was no beds or anything. It was a barrack, and we would just lay in there, just one next to the other, and there would be some straw on these. It was like a platform on both sides. And that's how we would sleep.
Now, were they stacked, these platforms?
Yes. Just
I've seen photographs of them.
Yeah, double.
Yeah. And any reason why you were sent from Auschwitz to Dachau?
Well, I wanted to get out of there, number one, and secondly, they needed people to send out further out into Germany for work. See, they didn't have enough workers. They had all their armies and everything, every soldier they needed to fight the Germans, to fight the Russian front. So they employed people to, they took slaves to do their jobs.
And how do you travel from Auschwitz to Dachau?
Also by train.
By train.
Yeah, the same way as we got, but at that time, we were hoping that they are getting us into a different situation than what we were coming from. We were hoping for better because we were going to Germany.
Was Dachau better?
Was Dachau better? Well, actually not, other than the fact that in Dachau you had perhaps a better opportunity to survive than you would have. Well, strictly because they didn't have a gas chamber there. They did not gas people. The worst what could happen, you get shot. But then the shooting of the people was not as frequent as, let's say, taking a whole bunch of 300-400 people and putting them in a gas chamber and gas. But the camps that they had, there were something like 20 or 25 camps around Dachau, little camps that were under the supervision of Dachau. They were all called Dachau. I was in a camp in Kaufering. I was in various camps that were divisions of or branches of Dachau. And so why I went there, I guess it was just strictly coincident that I went to that camp, because I was in line for it. I stood there, and I guess the guy who picked people liked my face, or liked my you know, the way, my size or whatever, and I went with that transport.
Have any trouble getting on the transport?
No, no. Once they were well, I was eliminated a few times not to go with some transports, and I didn't know where they went. You must understand, they might have been to another camp, or even worse or better camps. The only thing of in Dachau, what it was, that a lot of people died from hunger. A lot of people died from beating, getting beat up. I myself got once 25 on my back.
What to do?
I did, we went for bread, coming back from the night shift, and the bread didn't arrive from the whatever to the camp, and so they picked up something like 30 some odd people, and we had to pull these wagons and go for bread. Well, when we got back, they missed 4 breads. So they started searching everybody, and they couldn't find anything. So we had to turn out our pockets, and they found a crumb in my pocket of bread. So I was showing some kind of, they had to show an example. So they took 2 guys, and it was a very, very bad situation to get 25 with a real stick.
Yes. Were you aware of the uprisings like in Lockwood?
No. I was not involved in any of the uprisings because of I was always interned in a confined place.
Did you have any news of how the war was progressing?
That was something that we used to get from some of the German soldiers. They, you know, there were of course the SS, and there was and there were the regular army, you know, the Wehr, the Reichswehr. Well, these were more or less older people, and they had to serve. The guy who always guarded us and walked with us to work, he himself wanted to go home to Mama, and he was always talking about he wants to go home to Mama, and he was probably 60 years old. But he had a gun, he had a you know, a rifle and that big heavy coat on and everything. Well, he would tell us, "Oh boys, it's not going to last any longer. It's not going to last any longer. The Russians are already here, and the Americans over there, and the British are here." You know, he himself, I mean, that particular guy was hoping that any day this is over with and he can go home. Of course, the SS, the people who were very faithful to Hitler, thought that they will still survive and they're going to get rid of all the people in this world. See, there's one thing that we forget and sometimes overlook one thing. Hitler started with the Jews. But one day he would have eliminated all the Jews. Then he would have had to get to other people. Because these crematoriums were in place, everything was going well for them. They were organized. Well, they would maybe get to the Italians, and then they would get to everybody who doesn't have blue eyes, or is not maybe blonde, or maybe because you wear a mustache, you might have been eliminated. See, this is where this unbelievable, at what we have to understand, that this was an elimination of any people who would be against the totalitarian type government that Hitler built up. In other words, it was Deutschland über alles, Germany over all, and Germany has to rule the world. He wasn't satisfied with Poland, he wasn't satisfied just with... Then he wanted to go into Russia, and then he would have gotten to the British, and then he would have gotten to America. He would have gotten to the whole world.
Yeah.
So, and by doing this, he would have kept on killing people. The war took away something like, I don't know, 20, 25 million people that war cost.
What was the reaction of the soldiers, the prisoners, to you? No, not prisoners.
Well, some of them were very nice, and some of them were not nice. The ones that were really bad was the SS and the Hitler supporters. You know, they were, of course, the ones that wanted to fulfill a duty or whatever they called. They want to fulfill the duty, or they want to fulfill and get maybe promoted, that they can show that they killed so many more people or came up with a faster way to gas the people or to eliminate people generally. That's when you got your cross or whatever.
And you were in Dachau how long?
In Dachau I was until Liberation. That was, I jumped the trains on the 27th of April.
How'd you jump the train?
Well, what happened, we were, when the American army started coming closer and closer, we could already hear the activity of the heavy guns. That was in Bavaria. The Germans got a little bit worried that they have to move us out someplace. See, so what their big thing was, if they can kind of destroy everything around them, that nobody's going to see what really happened here in that area. But after a while, they were not able to do that anymore because the American army would advance, and so they took us. However, they did clean out our camp and put us in wagons, and we rode all night long and didn't get any place because all the lines were busy with moving the army. They got so confused already. This was only a week or two before the war ended altogether. So we were going up and down, up and down. They wanted to take us. They told us to take us to Tyrol, to be, for what reason they would take us to Tyrol, I don't know. It was, I think, just as they would escape the army, as their armies would escape. As the army advanced, the American army, they had the Germans got very panicky in a way. And here again, as I said, there was just no way that they could get us through any place because we were number two, so to speak. The army was number one to get through to go to other fronts or whatever, how they retreated. When they retreated, I guess they wanted to take us with them on their retreat. But unfortunately, the American flyers came in and started bombing our train, not knowing that we are there, but because parallel to us there was the anti-air, the flak, what they call and they would shoot up there, and they had them on trains. So they tried. The British came, and then the Americans came. Waves of all different kinds of fighter planes and bombers. And as this happened, the German says, "Run out of the." They would open the doors, see, and we jumped. Well, we say we jumped the trains. We jumped already before they even opened the doors because some of the wagon was broken. So what happened? We lost that day about 185 people of our people from this attack, from the British and the American. But their intent was not to shoot at us; it was to shoot next, standing parallel on the track.
Did they know you were there in the cars?
I don't know. That we don't know. We only know one thing, that we have 3 mass graves there, and that's where they buried all the people. And as they then all the things stopped, all the fighting, they wanted to get us as, they gathered up all the people and put us back on the train and go on. But at that point we started running out. There were about 200 that ran away. There were about maybe total 3,000 to 4,000 people on that train. So as we ran away, and I was already at that time, I only weighed something like 96 pounds. I was really another 2 or 3 weeks, I don't know if I would have survived. So my uncle carried me and a friend of mine, and we had to walk about 2 or 3 kilometers. And so we stopped in the first house and we walked in and we said, do you have a little water? Because I said, let's stop here. I said, it's no use, you guys go on, run, and I'll stay. We figured I'll take my chance. And that family was very, very nice to us. They knew what was happening, and they took us in, and they were hiding us. And next day the Germans would come in, the SS, you have hidden people here, and they tried everything in the world, but we were in the haystack, in a very big hay barn.
If they found someone hiding in the house, would those people be gone?
Yes, they risked their life at the time. Yeah, they risked their lives at that time. But here again, there are various people say, well, they had to do it because they knew that the war is over and it's lost, and they were maybe afraid if they don't, they might get punished from somebody else. But I would say that I'm very thankful to those people, and I'm visiting those people quite often, although they are not alive anymore, but they're children.
I heard they were doing experiments at Dachau.
Experiments with what?
Medical experiments on people.
Yes.
What
yes.
were they doing?
Well, they would freeze people. I wanted to see how they unfreeze. They would take men and women together and wanted to see how they can stimulate their feelings. They would cut off limbs and see how they can maybe put prosthesis on or whatever. So many of them, that I am not familiar with, to be honest. I mean, I didn't see it. But, after the war came out, they would sometimes operate on men, on the sexual part, just to find out something that, some scientist, a doctor, wanted to find out, and they figured, these people are slaves. If he dies, he dies. If he lives. So, and they didn't care if he died, so they took another one to continue an experiment. But yes, there were experimentations done.
When did you see your first American? When did you see your first American?
The first American I saw was May 1st.
And where was this?
That was in Petzenhausen, in that house where I stayed, where I was hiding. And the people who we stayed there, where we were hiding us, they also had a brother in their house hiding. And evidently the Americans knew about their brother, because he was in the underground, in the German underground. So they evidently knew something about it, because when the first tanks came into that town, the first thing they did was stop in that place and they asked for him. So evidently the CIC at that time was pretty sharp. They knew what was going And so when they came in at that time, of course, we were still scared. We didn't know whether this whole thing is for real, whether they are not Germans coming into the. But we did see that he put his revolver on the table and gave it to them, and we knew he was there because, but we didn't know who he was. See, he would not. He figured, well, if they get caught, they'll tell about me. So nobody would know that this was what he did to be in that house. He came. He was hiding out for about 2 years around the woods in that area, and he became ill and so on. And he figured probably the last few days he'll take a chance. Nobody's gonna come to his brother's house. So I will say that, and that was the time. It was at night when the patrols came in, first patrol. We were, of course, we heard they spoke perfect German, of course. They knew what they were doing. And the next day, we saw the whole town as though everybody is out in town and the Americans are walking around. We said, well, I guess we're liberated.
If I may ask, what is your worst memory of Auschwitz and Dachau?
Well, I went back to some of these places. I went back even to the place where I worked in Dachau. It was outside of Kaufering, a town that was building a tunnel, what we call bunker. It was a bunker that was really built for the 1,000-year Reich, There was supposed to be a munition factory, everything underground with trains and everything. It was huge, huge enterprise. There were about 100,000 people working there just to build this thing. It never was finished because it would have taken I don't know how long, but they did finish it later on when NATO took it over. And then now first the American Army, then NATO, and then everyone built on a little bit to it. Now the German Wehr has it, the Deutsche Wehr. And it's stockpiled their missiles and other things that they have for their militia and so forth. It's a distribution point. I went back there and they were very nice, by the way. I was invited to come there because I told them that I built this thing. I helped build this thing. And so when you say, what is the worst, and I myself often think about, well, at what point was I at the brink of being either dead or alive? Okay, it was a matter of seconds that you could have died. Yeah. I think the shock, the aftershock was tremendous, because all of a sudden you saw that you finally found out that everything is lost, all your family, all your relatives, all your friends. You don't have them. They were not there. That was a tremendous shock to me. But what was the worst? I think when I got the 25 on my back, and this fellow, he got first, his 25, and I had to sit on his head on a bench. Just had to bend over, and I had to sit on his head. And then, of course, he got his 25.
When you say 25?
25 whips. He got whipped. And then when I got he was sitting on my head, and the poor guy had his pants full from the beating that he got. But that was a tough thing, because for weeks and weeks I couldn't lay on my back. I didn't want to tell it to nobody, to my uncle especially. I didn't want to upset him. But we went to a shower one day, and he said, "What is this on your back?" And then I told him the story. And then there were so many, on a daily basis, what was bad in a camp, you cannot even, every day was very bad. Every day. There was no good day. Even a Sunday where we would have the day of rest, so to speak. They would get us out in the camp. They would say, you have to pick up all the little stones. Well, little stones, this is all there was. But we would have to have, now imagine a thing, how you can sometimes aggravate people or make their life miserable. And this was their aim. We would have to take our jackets, you saw the striped uniforms people have on. We had to take it, I must show you this, and take it like this so that we can use it like this and take and lay all day long. And if you would lift your head, you got a whip over your head. In other words, these guys would say, stay down there and pick up those little stones, and then we had to put them all in one pile. And then when everything was done, they would say, okay, now we don't need this, take all this pile and spray it out again. Just to aggravate you, just to make people their lives miserable. And this was a day supposed to be the day of rest. We always said the worst thing is when you had to stay in camp. You were better off going someplace to work. At least they would not show that kind of treatment, because you would work either on a farm someplace or you work in a factory someplace. They could not disrupt it with beating somebody, because the guy who ran the factory, he was interested in production.
Now what, tell me again the work that you did at Dachau, at
Kaufering.
Kaufering.
Well, we would walk about 2 miles, 2 hours. But let's see, we'd leave at 6. We would walk about an hour and a half to work. And after that, we would work on in that area. I would strictly work on this bunker. Was the main. I would say most of my time in Dachau area was to work on that bunker. I was in that group, and I was working, carrying cement on my back, and my back would be already all sore. You can almost say the bones of my.
How big?
Back.
How big is that bunker?
Huge. It's very huge. You can drive in with trucks and with with trains and everything else. I mean, it is very huge. It has, the elevators are larger than this room here, and it was all built for in case if this bunker. I'll tell you, just to give you an idea. It was 97 feet from the bottom to the top of the ceiling. This was just a straight deal, yeah? Then the width of it was very, very huge, very huge. I couldn't even describe to you the whole concept of this thing, because there were supposed to be factories in there and all kinds of things. Now at this time, when I came back, I really realized what this whole thing was all about. When I came back and they showed me around, and realizing how big this thing was. The walls were 3 meters thick, and it would be a round structure, and on top of this they would put like 3 or 4 meters of dirt, and there was a forest on top. Everything was dug in the ground. When I was talking about the 97 feet, I was talking about that the top of that ceiling was 96 feet from the ground up, and that was not even with this would not be at the level of the general ground there. So it was deep in the ground.
That's a lot of cement.
Yes, and we lost a lot of people in that process, where the cement would be pumped into this area. It was a pumping station where they would pump that cement in there when the structure was built with the steel and iron. And as we had to stay there and pump the cement, some of us slipped, and with the power of that cement would just, and we were unable to save them anymore. There were some people, quite a few people, buried in these walls there. strictly from this power of cement coming in there.
What was your reaction when you saw your first American?
Well, I was, if I would say that we were thankful, that is a very big understatement. But we were, we thought this will never happen again. This cannot. This is something that it was almost like a dream. We of course were very. I mean, we were surprised to see the Americans. We were surprised to see anyone to come and disbelieve that we are really liberated.
How did the Americans treat you?
Extremely well. I mean, fantastic. Really. I mean, they brought food and they brought everything. They made sure that everything is taken care of. As a matter of fact, a friend of mine that I was years with him in camp together, he was, we worked together somehow, and he fell down. He had his head split in camp before the Americans came in, and they sewed it up with just a regular needle and thread. And when the Americans saw him, they took him right away to their hospital, and they cleaned out everything up, reoperated on him, and did everything they could. There was no, it was unbelievable what the Americans did there. Unbelievable.
Why? I don't understand. Maybe this is not a fair question. Why was Hitler and the Nazis and the SS able to do this?
Well, I think they were able to do it because I think at the time when Hitler came to power, he promised them a greater Germany. The propaganda, Goebbels and Goering and all this whole bunch, all these bandits, they were dreaming of something very fantastic about Germany.
Yeah.
So what happened, they had enough support evidently from the German people to be able to do it. You were brought up, evidently they had the, I would say, first it started out with the Hitler Jugend, it's like the Boy Scouts, and they put in a lot of hate into them, and that you are the German and you are pick the best race, and and all the others are not supposed to live on this earth. You are supposed to be the master. You are supposed to be the master race, and in order to do all this, I think this is what developed. It was not a process that he did immediately. It is something that went up, and it got always worse and worse and worse, because especially when he started feeling that he is being defeated. I think that was the time that it really incites them. They thought, boy, I guess we are losing out against the Jews, against the Italians, against the British, and against everybody. So that is really the height of the extermination was really 43, 44, when things did not go well anymore for them.
And what did you do after you were liberated?
When I was liberated, I was, you reflect on a lot of things. I was a kid. I was 19 and a half years old. And I thought that my personal feeling was right off the bat that I cannot blame all Germans for what happened. And I thought, well, I can go two different ways. I can either go out there and kill a lot of them and take revenge, have some kind of revenge, and satisfy which by all means I should have maybe done, or it would be no crime not to. To do it. It would be. I couldn't see any crime. Some people going crazy and doing it. Or I could have gone the direction I did go. And I thought I just have to help along the way to build a better relationship in this world, generally, that these things will never happen again. And this is the attitude I have to really take in, by which I lived all this time. And I go back to Germany quite often. It's very hard sometimes when you see a young man and say, well, is this the guy who beat me up? Is this the guy who killed my mother or sister or so? Then I realized the man is only 30 or 40 years old. He wasn't even born at that time. However, there is just no restitution. I feel like that the German people can never make it good. Okay? They just cannot make it good. You cannot pay for a life that was killed. You cannot pay for this child that was killed, or the mother and stuff like this. And when you talk about millions and millions of people, one way or another, somebody in every family was involved in it. I mean, when the war was over, nobody was a Nazi. You couldn't find one. But really, in fact, they had to have all these people to do it. I feel that there is, I go back, as I say, I sometimes have to fight my own mind, but then I realize that these people were not there at that time. It wasn't that guy. Yet there is a burden that guy has to carry for his nation. It is his nation that did it, and as long as they live and as time goes on, I think that burden they will have to carry, unfortunately. Because it is, to my estimation, the German philosophy of being the top race, the superior race, has never vanished. They still think that they are smarter than the Italians or the French or anybody else. If anybody thinks that all of a sudden they changed, even the one that is born today, although he might be very democratic and everything, he doesn't want to have another Holocaust. That is not the point. But he still thinks that he ought to be better or is better than the next neighbor. So therefore, I would say that by us, the Americans and the Russians and the French and the English, whoever fought the war, giving Germany again that opportunity to become strong militarily would be a disaster. Would absolutely be a disaster. A united Germany would be a disaster. I think that they should stay that way. Let them do all the commercial things. Let them do all the inventing. Let them do all the things they want to do. But a military power would be, I think, a very bad thing for Europe.
What made you decide to come to the United States?
Well, as I said it 42 years ago, that I had to build a new future. I mean, I had to build a future. I married in Bremen, Germany, in 1946, and we thought at that time there was this. I came under the Truman doctrine, that they would let in 100,000 refugees to the United States. And I was one of them. I took advantage of it to be able to come to America, even though at the time some people stayed there and are still there. I felt that this is no future for us in Germany, and America did offer this a tremendous opportunity for young people. We were young at the time, only 21 years old. And we have seen, we saw that it's a country that perhaps things like this will not happen, that a man can speak his mind and do whatever he wants to do as long as you don't break the law. So we are very happy.
Did you return to Poland after the war?
Yes, I was in Poland about 4 weeks ago, as a matter of fact.
I mean
yeah, but for business. Mainly for business reasons.
Did you return to Poland right after you were liberated?
No.
No.
I went back to Poland from Tulsa. And as a matter of fact, I took 2 of my children. I have 3 sons, and 2 of them were in Poland. And I took one of them to Auschwitz. And we had a very, very serious discussion. And now this is a fellow who was born here, went to college here, and is lived through the American, you know. And he is, and I asked him, I said, Michael, do you think this can ever happen again? He says, yes. I was really surprised to hear him. I said, why? He said, well, it happened before, and if it once happens, it could happen again. When? Who knows? But it can happen. But when you go through Auschwitz and you see all the hair of the people, you see all the glasses, you know, they put together all this. You must have some people went to the gas chambers. What did they do with the eyeglasses? You know, the things. There were big piles of things.
Was it difficult to go back?
Well, yes, I did not even make a picture of anything there. I thought that my hands would freeze if I do it, and I didn't. And I feel very bad about people who go, unless it is for a historical purpose. I do not feel that people should go out there with the movies and this and show off what they wear and all this kind of stuff, which I always was very much against that. I mean, these were the too much private. I mean, I almost say, I don't know if this person gave me the permission to take a picture of her hair. You know, although this person is dead long ago, and she was burned in the crematoriums and everything, but I had no right to do that. So this, I just could not see myself, neither did my son, to make even inside of this, it's like a museum now, of course, you know, it's just showing thousands, hundreds of thousands of people come there to see it. To be able to make a picture of it, I think my hands couldn't do it. It was that bad. I mean, just when you say the memory coming back to you, yes, it is a shock to go through it, even today, you know, after so many years. The hardest thing is you still find a way to think, how could all this happen? How did people really, I mean, is it really, you know, it's almost like a dream, and I cannot blame some of the people who cannot understand it, and don't, if you have not been there yourself, I don't think anybody can even visualize some of these things. You cannot visualize it. And I don't blame the people for it. I really don't. I really don't.
So why did you move to Oklahoma?
Okay. When I was in Germany, and after about 6-8 weeks, I met up with a very nice officer in the American Army. His name was Joseph Feiner. He was in the CIC. And he was really very helpful to me. He was also young at the time, and very helpful in finding a place where to live, and giving me guidance and so on. That was already in Bremen. That was about 6-8 weeks after the war. I have met Americans before, but never that I became very friendly with, like I did with Joe. And you know, like any other GI said, hey, if you come to America, look me up. You know, and one day I did come to America, and I did look him up. And at that time, he went to Georgetown University, and on his the GI Bill of Rights. He came back, of course, from the army and was entitled to it. And then we were very friendly together in New York, and I knew his parents and his relatives. And one day he started out a business, and we all helped him because Joe was a good guy and he helped a lot of other people, and we helped him go into business. And as it turned out to be, one day he called me up and he said, would you like to work for me? I said, yeah, but I don't think you can afford me. And he said, well, why don't you give it a try? And I did. He had a retail business of this kind that we are in this business.
Like Fabricut?
Yes, we have fabrics for home usage and also hotels, motels. And so we were talking about it, and I said, okay, I said, I have to take a vacation anyway, so instead of going on vacation, I'll just go and give it a try and try out. And my gosh, I was very impressed with the business he was in.
Where was this located?
That was in Huntington, New York. And so we moved from Brooklyn to New York, and I started working for him. And, with the understanding, I said, Joe, listen, I helped you go into business, but one day, once I learned this business, I'm not going to work for you. I'm going to open my own business. I would never open up across the street from him. Never would want to compete with him because we were just two good buddies. And so I thought maybe upstate New York or something like this, I'll start a little decorating shop and, make a living. Like that's somewhere you got to start if you want to be in business. So one day he asked me, as I say, to come to work for him, and I worked with that understanding that I will, after 2 years, leave or go in business for myself. And 2 years later came around, and he said, "Listen, I don't want you to go in business by yourself. If you're going to go in business, I want you to go in business with me." And so we laid out some plans that maybe go to Oklahoma, go west. It was young men go west. New York got overcrowded with this type of business, and competition was rough. So we decided to. He made a trip to Kansas City and Dallas, and stopped here in Tulsa on his way. And he said, "Hey, I went to a little town, Tulsa. How about that?" So back and forth, we came here to Oklahoma, and we started together this business. I came here 5 years before he did, after the business started generating enough income so that two families could live from it. So he came out then 5 years later, and he also has 3 children, of which I think 2 are born here. And my children, I also have 2 born here in Tulsa. But this is basically how it started out, and we are today one of the largest companies in this field in the United States. So we have done well. We employ about 450 to 500 people. We have a plant in Pryor, Oklahoma, on Highway 69. I don't know if you ever pass by that place. You'll see Fabricut. We have a division in Los Angeles, also a warehouse out there, also distributing throughout. So this is basically, Oklahoma is a very good spot to start a business, believe it or not, because you can go any place, you can ship. It's very centrally located. We can ship south, north, east, west in very fast way. We can give faster delivery out of Tulsa than you can ship from Brooklyn to the Bronx. It's true. It's the same city. We can ship 500 miles radius overnight here, and that's fantastic. So, and this helped us also. In this field, everybody says, "Why Oklahoma? How did you get Oklahoma?" I mean, it is true. Our business is very strange here. And of course, through the years, we also became very active in some of the activities in town. And we are now here 34 years in July. It's going to be 34 years that we came here. And it was 34 years. And so we are very happy in Oklahoma.
Good.
Very happy.
I'd like to ask one more question. Would
Yes,
you
sir.
describe the trip from Germany to the States?
Yes. We came with the Ernie Pyle. That was one of the Liberty ships. I have a picture of it. We were 16. We arrived here January 16, 1947. We left there January the 3rd. It took 16 days to cross the Atlantic. And we were battered by the worst storm that has ever hit, I think, the Atlantic. We were it was a very rough trip coming here to the States, and coming to the United States, a strange country. I didn't understand one word. I pronounced the words as I read them in the language that I learned, and of course it was all wrong. And but when we did arrive, we had an organization that helped us get here.
Did you come to Ellis Island?
No, we came directly to New York. You see, at that time, all the tests were made over there in Germany, so it was different. It was different as people would come over and then they would go to Ellis Island and go through all the formalities. In fact, when we arrived here, we had some kind of a piece of paper that we are coming to the United States and that we had gone through all these tests.
Did you pass the Statue of Liberty?
Yes.
What was your reaction when you saw the Statue of Liberty?
Well, it was a very foggy day, I want to tell you that day, because it was in January, but yet it was these are the most emotional times of your life, when this you go through all this thing, and all of a sudden you see that there is a spot in the world that you can that perhaps a new life can start. It's freedom. It's the opportunity that a person gets to even come into the New York Harbor. And, it is very emotional. It is very breathtaking. You all of a sudden realize that you are a human being. That some people are taking you in to their open house, and the statue is placed in the right place, that it gives everyone that wonderful feeling. It's like a welcome person. It's very, very hard to explain sometimes the feeling one goes through, but it certainly was a fantastic feeling for my wife and myself.
Mr. Guterman, I think we have a good interview.
Yeah.
Anything else that you want to comment on, or?
That's okay. Anytime. I appreciate you came out here. I don't know how much I contributed to
quite a lot.
Your mind. But I did have, as I say, I was very fortunate to meet up with a very wonderful person, my wife, and we are now 42 years married, more than 42 years, and we have a wonderful life here in Oklahoma, and as I say, through the years I was able to do things that perhaps I could have never done in any other country. And as I mentioned to you before, being invited to some places. I was at the White House. I was invited by President Carter to come and visit. It so happened to be by coincidence that I was invited to come on the 16th of January. It was 33 years that I was in the United States. And being just in the White House, just waiting for Mrs. Carter and the President, it gives you an unbelievable feeling. I mean, it is something that you say, my God, you are right here in the middle, in the heart of everything. where any decision can be made for generations, not just today. It's whatever is made is done for generations, and you all of a sudden have this enormous, this unbelievable feeling that you have, you can't do any more in your lifetime, but come to that point, to be even waiting in that waiting room at the White House is a fantastic feeling, and especially when you are invited. It was a private invitation. And these are, of course, your good feelings, and I'm very strongly, I think that sometimes I feel that the Americans who are born here don't understand and don't know how grateful they should be.
They take it for granted.
Take it very much for granted, yes. And that's something that I'm a very, very, very fortunate person that I came to the States and am able to do things that I have not, I don't think I would have had the same chance any place in the world. Really.
Thank you.
So, welcome.